Okay, good morning, everyone, and we are continuing here in another week of Tehillim. We're starting a new Tehillim today, Mem, which is 40, and it's interesting because last week I actually thought perhaps that I would change the title when I send out the recording every week. I've been titling it since the coronavirus began, Finding Meaning in These Trying Times, through Tehillim. And last week I was thinking to myself, Baruch Hashem, the trying times seem to be passing away. You know, the coronavirus is at a nil right now, and people are vaccinated and getting back to normal life, and things seem to be picking up and moving in the right direction. And I was actually very happy that this week I was going to change the title, just put it back to Tehillim. But we all know that it was certainly a trying week for Klal Yisrael. Many tragedies amongst the Jewish people. The entire events which took place in Meron last week on Thursday. The death of 45 people who perished, and the Levias, the funerals are still going on. I think even as we speak right now, there were 2 Bachim in the Mir Yeshiva, and they have not been laid to rest yet in their Levias. I think they were waiting for their parents to arrive from America. The funerals are taking place now. So we're still holding by trying times for the Jewish people. And certainly Dovid HaMelech was the master of trying times. He understood what it meant to live a life of difficulty, a life of suffering, a life of hardships, a life of unknown and not being aware of why Hashem was doing what he was doing. And so when a person finds themselves in a situation where it's a trying time and it's difficult to understand why Hashem does the things that he does, so perhaps one of the safest places to turn to are the words of Tehillim of Dovid HaMelech, because it's really what he writes about almost in every single one that we've seen so far. And today is no less. Today's Tehillim, which is Mem 40, is on the surface, Dovid HaMelech looks like he is reveling in greatness and prosperity and success, and he has redeemed himself from all of his enemies. But as we go through this particular Tehillim that we're going to see, as Rav Herschel pointed out and the others, it could not be farther from the truth. Dovid HaMelech was still suffering, he was still going through the onslaught of his enemies. He was in hiding, he was in desperation. And yet, as he writes over here in Lamnatseach LeDavid Mizmor, to him who grants LeDavid Mizmor, to Dovid HaMelech Mizmor, a song. And we learned earlier on in Tehillim that there's 2 ways that David will speak. Either it says Mizmor LeDavid, a song to David, or it says LeDavid Mizmor, and there's not so many Tehillims that says LeDavid Mizmor where it mentions him first before the song. And the Gemara Psachim tells us that when you see the words Mizmor LeDavid, a song to David means that Dovid HaMelech was in a difficult situation, and he needed the song to elevate him and to lift up his spirits and to pick him up and get him through that challenging moment that he was in his life. But whenever you see the words LeDavid Mizmor, to David a song, that means that Dovid HaMelech was already on a shrasal of Shechina v'achakach amashira. The Shechina was dwelling upon him already, and then after that he sings this song, which means that David is in such a state of being inspired in the presence of Hashem. He's in such a world of dveikis, of unity and closeness to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that the song that he's using right now is merely to express, or it's coming to express, the ideas that he's already been inspired by, and his thoughts, his emotions that have come about as some glorious experience that Dovid HaMelech is going through. So if we would take just the initial opening lines of this Tehillim, that would mean that we would expect that Dovid HaMelech is in a wonderful place in his life. Because it's LeDavid Mizmor, that means the Shechina, the divine presence, is upon him. That means that Dovid HaMelech understands the greatness and the glory of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It would seem that the enemies have subsisted have ceased, it would seem that things are getting better for him. However, Rav Hirsch points out that if you go through this Tehillim carefully, verse by verse, eventually you'll get to verse number 12 and beyond, and you'll realize that the song that Dovid is writing as a zmira, as a song, as a praise of the elevated state that he feels on, is being written and expressed at a time in Dovid's life when he was being oppressed by dangers and he was in extreme need of deliverance from the enemies that were on all sides. Which means that Dovid HaMelech, in all of the difficulty, he was able to, in his peril and his affliction, his soul was filled with divine inspiration. He was able to sense and he was able to see the goodness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the loving embrace of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, understanding how difficult things could be, and learning from his previous experiences and putting it all into perspective. And therefore Dovid HaMelech rises to the top over here in these words, and he understands that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the Menatzeach, Hashem is the one who will bring salvation. And what is the salvation that we are referring to? Says Rav Hirsch so beautifully, he has endowed man with spiritual fortitude, which can exalt him victoriously above all earthly misery, which means that the weakness of a human being is when he gets sunken in to the misery and the destruction and the plight that is going on around him. The weakness of a human being is when he looks to the world at large and he feels himself being threatened by that which is going on. However, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the Menatzeach, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the one who brings redemption and brings victory. And the victory is that although there are all these things that are going on around me right now, the world seems to be closing in on me, says Dovid HaMelech. Nevertheless, you've given me spiritual fortitude. And that fortitude is that I am above and I don't have to be sunken in, I don't have to be dragged down by the nature of this world, but rather I will be strong in my emunah and my bitachon, and I will go forward, and that itself will allow me that even in the darkness and the sadness and the hardship, I'm going to sing a song. Dovid HaMelech over here is going to speak about a shir chadash, a new song. How are you singing a song if the enemies are chasing down your back? How are you singing a song if your life is in misery? Because Dovid HaMelech realized it's only miserable if you think that it is miserable. You're only suffering if you feel the suffrage. You're only despondent if you allow yourself to be hopeless and despondent. But if a person rises up above that with the emunah and the bitachon that they have in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, then we are never sunken in. We are never falling into the traps and into the pits of despair. Rather, we can always be elevated above. I don't know if anybody saw the clip that they sent out of a father who came to be maspid, who came to eulogize his 13-year-old son who passed away. He was a father, and two of his children were there on the staircase of Meron. And the father and his 10-year-old son survived. They were in the hospital. They were released from the hospital just by ambulance to come to the Levaya, to the funeral. But the 13-year-old son did not make it through the ordeal. Sitting in this picture is the father in a wheelchair and his 10-year-old son in a wheelchair. And the father gave only what a Jew could do at such a time, such a drush about Avos Yisrael and Achdus and unity. Spoke about the glory of his son and the uniqueness of his son who passed away. Then they asked the little boy who's 10 years old. They asked him, do you remember what happened? He's got about 10 microphones in his face from all the news stations, surrounded by hundreds of people. And this little 10-year-old boy is looking with these pure eyes. Do you remember what happened? He said, of course I remember what happened. So they said to the boy, so what happened? And he said, we were walking along and then suddenly everybody started falling. And he said, I knew that my life is going to end. 10-year-old boy on the Emunah, he says, I knew that it's the end. And I screamed out, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu. I knew the only way I'm going to survive right now if HaKadosh Baruch Hu makes a miracle for me. And he said, Hashem saved me. Hashem saved me, I lived. So then they asked the boy, what were you thinking at that time? You just yelled out, what were you thinking? So a 10-year-old boy from Bnei Brak, I think Bnei Brak, he says, Bitochen and Emunah. Trust in Hashem and faith in Hashem. That's all that I was thinking about at that time. I'm being dragged down. I'm falling down the stairs. He broke his leg. Who knows how much pain he was in. The people are falling, toppling one on top of the other. The little boy yells out, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. HaKadosh Baruch Hu saves his life. Says Dovid HaMelech, a person goes through so many difficulties in their life. They go through so much pain and suffering and hardships and everything. But it's only as painful as a person allows it to cause them that pain. It's only as dark and it's only as much a person will give up as much as they put themselves in that situation. But you could be toppling, you could be falling down the staircase and people are falling all over you, and your emunah and your bitachon is coursing through your mind and your veins, and your little boy, and that's your response, is Shema, not screaming, Shema Yisrael, that's what he let out. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu heard his cry, and he was redeemed and he was saved. Says Dovid HaMelech over here, he's in a bad state. Nevertheless, Mizmor, he's singing a song. And that song is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you gave me the ability to rise up over the inertia of the situation that I find myself in. You gave me the ability to lift my spirits and rise myself in a situation where I don't have to succumb to that which is going on around me with all my enemies, but rather I will live above and beyond all of that. So he writes, Kavoi kivisi Hashem, I've hoped to you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, v'yeit elai, you should turn your ear towards me, vayishma shavasi, and please listen to my cry. Or the way that it is, meaning that he did listen to me and he did hear my cry. Dovid HaMelech is saying that I know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu listens to me. Says Rav Hirsch over here, I often hoped that even as I would raise my spirit heavenward, which means I was trying to grow and I was trying to reach a higher level, says Dovid, that I wanted that Hashem also would come near to me. It's not enough that we just try on our own to reach a higher level of Avodas Hashem. We need to know that as we're walking towards Hashem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is coming towards us. And indeed, I have not been deceived in my hope, says Dovid, that Hashem inclined himself toward me and he heard my cry. Says Rav Gamliel Rabinovich on this pasuk over here. Well, let's just see the next one first, because it says, "V'ya'aleini mibar shoin." You raised me up from a pit of desolation. Mitit hayovein, from a pit of mud. V'yankum al sela raglai kaiden ashurai. He set my foot on a rock, and he firmly established all of my steps. Says Rav Hirsch, I sunk into a pit. I lost my ability to reason. It was not a very good situation for me. My difficulties were great. I had no idea how am I going to get out of here, says Dovid HaMelech. However, from the misery that I was in, from the difficulties I was in, that's where HaKadosh Baruch Hu lifted me up and he raised me up. Like we say, Mikimi mi'arfadol, HaKadosh Baruch Hu should lift me up from the lowliness that a person finds themselves in. He says, I was in a sad state before, but now HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he raised me up to heights that I was never on before, and he helped me to stand firm and to stand straight and to take my steps in the right direction once again. Dovid never lost faith. He never lost hope. He never stopped believing that no matter what it is that he's going through in his life, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is always going to be the one that will save him and rescue him there. So Rav Gamliel Rabinovich writes on these words. If you look in Rashi, he says the pasuk is talking about that when we were in Mitzrayim, when the Jewish people were in Egypt, Dovid HaMelech is referring to our gullus of Egypt, that we were there and we hoped to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hatei Elias Oznai, HaKadosh Baruch Hu heard my cries, and V'shama L'kol Shavasi, he heard my voice. He heard my cries and he rescued us. The Jewish people were in a situation in Mitzrayim, in Egypt, as we know from the days of Pesach, it was hopeless. There's no place to go. 210 years sunk in over there. And yet Klal Yisrael, they let out their tefillahs to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They cried when they needed to cry, and Hashem heard them. Says Rav Gamliel Rabinovich the following, Umi pasuk zeh, anu lemedim yesod gadol. From this verse we learn a tremendous foundation. Hine yedua, it's known, ki geulas haprat mechuvenes keneged geulas haklal. An important idea over here. Whatever we learn from the redemption of the masses of our people, it's just a symbol of the way that the redemption is going to work for the individual as well. Umikachanu lemedim. What are we learning out from this verse? Kederech shebnei Yisrael mitzrayim na'anu betfilasam. Just like the Jewish people, their prayers were answered when they were in Egypt. Because when they let out their prayers in Egypt to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it came with emunah and bitachon, with faith and with trust in Hashem. So too, when an individual will pray to Hashem with this emunah, with this great faith, that Hashem Himself is the only one that can save us and rescue us from our tsar, from the anguish that we find ourselves in. There's nobody else that's going to save us. Like the Horowitz writes, he says, a person is supposed to trust in Hashem. And Hashem says, if you trust in me, I'll take care of you. But if you begin to place your emunah and your bitachon in other places in this world, like in people, like in places, like in governments or the like, Hashem says, you don't need me anymore? So fine. So then let them take care of you. You don't want me in your life? So fine, I won't be there. I'll let you putting your faith in this person, let that person take care of you, and you'll see that they cannot take care of you. However, if a person will come and they will trust only in Hashem, and they'll daven with the emunah that only HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the one that's going to save me, Muvtach loi. It's a promise to such a person. It's a promise that your prayers are going to be received by the Ribbono Shel Olam. Masha'ein kain, on the other hand, when a person doesn't have this faith, you don't believe that Hashem can actually save you from whatever difficulties you're going through, your prayers, no matter how much you think that you're doing, are not going to be answered. If a person sees, I daven, I don't get answered, I don't understand. I've been davening for 20 years for a certain thing, never happened. How come not? I don't understand. Yada shezehu machma shelo hispalel mitoich emunah and bitachon. He writes over here, if a person davens for something, and they think that they're being very sincere, and it's coming from the bottom of their heart, then there's a haftacha. Dovid HaMelech is saying, it goes without saying that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to answer your tefillah. It's going to happen. If it doesn't happen, that your prayers are answered, it must be a sign that he writes then, that even if you think that you're coming with emunah and bitachon in your tefillah, in your prayers, it must be that you're not coming with the full levels of emunah and bitachon, that I trust only in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, only Hashem can make things happen. Because if you would trust 100% that only Hashem can make things happen, then it's impossible. He's not going to make it happen. There's nothing holding him back. There's nothing that is refraining HaKadosh Baruch Hu from answering your tefillah. When you daven with that kind of faith, you will fulfill the verse, even if you're in a deep pit, a deep trench, and you're being mired in the mud over there, Hashem Yizbarach Yetzieo Mishal Tachtis, Hashem will remove you from there. You'll merit to be saved from all of your suffering. And then even more than that, Hashem will plant your feet firmly. Hashem will take you and carry you in the path of yashrus, of straightness. Says Rav Gamliel Rabinovich over here, very strong words, but this is the way that a person has to daven. A person davens, sometimes we think that we're davening and davening and davening, we think we don't understand why we're not being answered yet. The answer is because we didn't hit that place yet of emunah and bitachon, of trust and faith. This little boy, 10 years old, who knows? Not to say that everybody else wasn't davening when it happening like that, but a little 10-year-old boy, his initial response was Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, and it was all be'emunah and bitachon. Haftacha, how could HaKadosh Baruch Hu not answer his tefillahs? The tefillah of a 10-year-old boy in Eretz Yisrael from Bnei Brak, who could imagine how pure they are? And therefore says Dovid HaMelech over here, if we will recognize the plight of Klal Yisrael in general, we learn out from them what we have to do to ourselves. If Klal Yisrael, who was in the lowest level of impurity in Mitzrayim, was able to cry out and daven to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and their prayers were answered, so then certainly we ourselves have the ability, whatever situation that we are in, if we just open up our mouths and we begin to pray to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, putting all of our faith in Hashem, why should He not answer our prayers? Says number 4, Vayitem befi shir chadash, and now He put a new song in my mouth. Tehilo lelokeinu, a praise to Hashem. Yiru rabim v'yiro v'yiftechu b'Hashem. Let many people see and hear my song, and then they will fear HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and they will learn to trust in Hashem. Says Rav Hirsch on these words, he says, where did my new song come from? He says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu caused that I should come and I should sing a new song. And not a song of thanksgiving, but rather a song that is praising the radiant greatness in which HaKadosh Baruch Hu executes His judgment. This is the high levels of Dovid HaMelech. Remember, he has not yet gotten out of the woods in his struggles. He has not yet removed all the enemies from him. He has not yet has his son who's chasing down his back constantly, trying to usurp him and throw him out of the kingdom. He hasn't reached that level yet. He's still in the midst of the battle, in the midst of the struggle. He's going through the hardships. And yet, he's able to see that every single thing that HaKadosh Baruch Hu does in one's life, it's all l'toiv, it's all for the good. And therefore, he sings a song. And the song is saying the following words, that the very sufferings which the righteous hand of HaKadosh Baruch Hu metes out to us in order to discipline and to train us actually constitute His greatest acts of loving kindness. This is the Emunah of Dovid HaMelech, and this is the Emunah that he is trying to share with Klal Yisrael. And that is, again, to quote the words of Rav Hirsch over here, that the song that Dovid is singing is not a song of thanksgiving because he was redeemed from everything, but rather it is a song of awareness, of praising HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that I understand that everything that you put me through, all of the difficulties, all of the pain, all of the tsar, the agmas nefesh, the self, I don't know what you'd call it in English, agmas nefesh, but the soulful pain that a person experiences because of whatever it is that they're going through in life, I recognize HaKadosh Baruch Hu, all of that is all for my good. And since everything that you put me through in my life is l'tav of it, is all for the good, I understand then that you're training me, you're making me better and stronger so that I should appreciate what is the meaning of my life. And therefore, he says, I will sing this song because I recognize that it is the greatest act of chesed that you could do, everything that you place upon me. This is one of these shiurim that I gave last week. Spoke about the famous Gemara of Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva himself is one of the most amazing personalities that we find throughout Shas. He was a person from beginning till end, once the Torah became his life. He was a person who lived in a world where he never allowed the negativity to drag him down. He had 24,000 students who died in 33 days. Anybody in their right mind would have closed shop and said, I must be the worst Rosh Yeshiva in the entire world. I'm never going to teach again. And yet, on Lag BaOmer itself, Rabbi Akiva, after he loses his entire yeshiva, gets up, he goes to southern Israel and he finds 5 new students and he begins teaching them all of the Torah. Rabbi Akiva was the one who said the famous dictum of Kol Dovid Rachman L'Tav Avid, whatever HaKadosh Baruch Hu does, it's all good. Even when it looks like it's bad, we don't understand, it's all good. Rabbi Akiva famously is returning to Yerushalayim after it was destroyed. And he comes in with some of the other great sages of the generation, and when they see the destruction of Yerushalayim in front of them, they see a fox who is running out of the Kodesh HaKadoshim, the Holy of Holies, which is the holiest place in the world. They begin crying, and Rabbi Akiva starts laughing. And they say, Rabbi Akiva, Lamata Mesachik, why are you laughing? And Rabbi Akiva says, Ma atem boichim, why are you crying? And they said, we're crying because the pasuk in the Chumash says that in that place, the Kodesh HaKadoshim, the Holy of Holies, not even a non-Kohen is allowed to enter inside of there. And the truth of the matter is, the only person who ever enters the Kodesh HaKadoshim is the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur. So therefore, they said, and now there's a fox who's running out of the Holy of Holies. How could such a thing be? How could we not cry? It's total destruction. And Rabbi Akiva told him, Lekach ani mesachik. That's exactly why I'm laughing right now. Because there's a verse that talks about the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. And there's another verse elsewhere that speaks about that eventually Mashiach is, that there's going to be a time when Mashiach will come, there's going to be a rebuilding, and the city of Yerushalayim is once again going to be inhabited by the elders and by the children, and everybody's going to be dancing in the streets. So he said like this, I see a pasuk that speaks about Mashiach coming. But in order for Mashiach to come, that means there has to be some kind of a destruction, because that's what the verse is saying. When will Mashiach come? Mashiach will come when the destruction is going to end and HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to restore Yerushalayim to what it was before. Says Rabbi Akiva, until I saw that Yerushalayim was destroyed, which means that the first verse which was talking about the destruction came true, I question, when in the world is there going to be a time that Mashiach will come? When will that happen? But now that I see that the Beis HaMikdash is lying in ruins, and there's a fox that's running out of the Holy of Holies, so the first part of the prophecy has come true, now I know that Mashiach can come. And that's why I'm laughing. You see destruction, I see the rebuilding of Klal Yisrael. You see darkness, I see the light. You see the suffering of the Jewish people, I see that this is cause to celebrate, because that means that Mashiach is around the corner. Says Dovid HaMelech, that's the song that I'm singing over here. I am enveloped in darkness. I'm surrounded by enemies. I'm surrounded by people that want to destroy me. Who knows what's going to happen? In 5 minutes, nobody knows what's going to happen. Yet, I understand that every single detail of the world that HaKadosh Baruch Hu puts me through is for a reason. And the reason is because HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to train us and to shape us and to form us and make us greater people. I would never become the person I am unless I have to go through these challenges. I would never be elevated in my life to where I'm holding right now unless I go through this. I would never be able to see the world in the way that I see the world unless I go through the challenges of the life that I'm going through. That's not a punishment, says Dovid HaMelech. That is loving kindness from the Ribbono Shel Olam. Just because a person has Yisurim in life, we don't have to look at it, oh, Hashem hates me, he's punishing me. Says Dovid, I don't believe that Hashem hates me. And I don't believe that Hashem is punishing me. I believe that all of the hardships that I had to go through in my life is because Hashem loves me. But He wants me to be even greater than I am right now. And therefore, whatever details in my life are difficult to swallow, whatever incidents and events will transpire that are painful, I have to recognize it's not because Hashem is this mean, wrathful God who's coming to punish me for every little detail that I did wrong. On the other hand, it's chesed from the Ribbono Shel Olam. Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu has in mind greatness for me. And if it wouldn't be for the greatness that is within, then He wouldn't challenge me the way that He's challenging me. If you look around and you'll see everybody has challenges. Everybody has challenges. Sometimes the challenges that we go through as individuals, we look around. How come nobody else is going through that challenge? How come somebody else doesn't have that happening in their life? Take it, as Rav Hirsch said early on in Tehillim, take it as a compliment. If a person has a major challenge in their life, it is HaKadosh Baruch Hu's complimentary way of saying, I have so much faith in you. I believe that you could accomplish so much. Therefore, I'm giving you this challenge because only you can handle it. And that's the way that you're going to become a greater person. And that's Dovid. Who had more challenges than Dovid HaMelech? Nobody. And so he looked at it not as a punishment. He looked at it as a chesed, loving kindness from Hashem to make me stronger and greater, and therefore to learn how to trust Hashem even more, learn how to be closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And then he says, I sing a song right now to you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I'm singing the song of faith and of trust and of gratitude to you that you have put me through what you're putting me through to make me greater. And then everybody who's watching me, everyone who is watching me right now, they're going to learn from my own example to trust in Hashem. Even while there is a year while there is a fear of Hashem, they're going to learn how to trust in the Ribbono Shel Olam. As Hashem is judging the world, and He's running the world sometimes with midas hadin, with justice, at the same time we have to recognize and acknowledge it's whatever He does is all for the good. It's all for the good. And therefore, it's eventually, even though I don't see it right now, but it's eventually going to bring us to pure, happier lives that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to live. So Dovid HaMelech is saying, and this is the foundation of our belief system, that is that whatever a person is going through in their lives is not per se punishments. We don't have to look down on ourselves and feel we must be awful people if it's happening. On the other hand, why don't you say to yourself, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I know that you're only doing this because you see greatness that is untapped. Rabbi Akiva was a man who was a shepherd boy in ignoramus. He knew nothing. How did he end up marrying the daughter of the wealthiest man of all of Yerushalayim, Kaba ben Savua? Because his daughter looked at Rabbi Akiva in the fields and she saw Midais Malyusa, she saw such a lofty spirit inside, and she said, Akiva, you have such greatness inside of you. Go and make something of yourself. And if you will see the koyach, the potential that is inside of you, and you'll apply yourself to the Torah is going to shape you and form you and make you this beautiful person in the world. Every nisayon that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives to a person is to make us the most beautiful person that we could be here in this world. If you wouldn't have, think about a seed. A seed you plant in the ground. It goes into the ground, and anybody knows a little bit about gardening knows that while the seed is in the ground, it decomposes. It disintegrates. And from the decomposing, disintegrated seed, suddenly it takes a new form and a new shape, and the sprout comes, and it comes through the top of the ground, and it begins to grow. Imagine if that seed would never decompose. Imagine if it would never break down. Imagine if it would never disintegrate. If it would never do any of that, you'd never have a rose bush. You'd never have an apple tree. You'd never have a beautiful oak tree that could give you shade from the hot sun. You'd never have that. So the decomposing and the breaking down of the seed is the best thing that possibly could have happened to that. Says Dovid HaMelech, don't think, and it's not a punishment to the seed, that's the way that it grows. Says Dovid HaMelech, the way that we are going to grow in this world is no less. And stop feeling bad for yourself and looking at your plight in life as miserable because you must deserve such punishments and the like, and how you're going to get yourself out of it. Adarabba, on the other hand, a person has to look at their plight in life. They have to look at the struggles in life as loving kindness from Hashem. It's HaKadosh Baruch Hu's way of disintegrating and decomposing the seed that is inside of us. It's HaKadosh Baruch Hu's way which allows us to express our neshama that we were never able to express before. And if in fact we'll connect to that And we will believe in that, and we will understand that. So then we will become people that we never ever dreamed of in the world of Emunah, in the world of Bitachon, in the world of Menuchas HaNefesh. When a person goes through a challenging experience in their life, and they increase their Emunah, and they increase their Bitachon, that means that you can remain calm. You can remain unfazed from that which is going on. And then all the other little things in life that take place. Someone just called me last night. Their kids are not old, they still have young kids. And the person said to me, he said, I used to be a great father until I had children. He said, when I was a bacher in yeshiva, this kid was fascinated with books on chinuch. And he said, I used to read all the books. I thought I had it all down. I figured out exactly. He said, I don't know what I'm doing anymore. He said he has one kid who throws tantrums for hours on end. He has another one that does this. He said, I used to be a good father. I don't know what to do anymore. So, and he said, I'm losing my menuchas hanefesh. I'm losing my peace of mind. I'm flying off the handle because the kids are driving me crazy. I said, yeah, wait till your kids turn 20 years old. Then you really know what it's about. So this is what Dovid HaMelech is saying over here. Dovid HaMelech is saying, I have to laugh because that's what Dovid HaMelech is saying. You have to laugh about these things. Dovid HaMelech is saying the following. He's saying that whatever challenge a person will find themselves in life, you should know it's because HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves you and He cares about you and He wants you to become the greatest person that you could possibly be. And that's the Shir Chadash, that's the Chiddush. Chadash means new. That's the Chiddush. That's the new idea that Dovid HaMelech had over here at this point in his life, where he said, although there are tragedies, although there is suffering, although there are difficulties surrounding me on all sides, but the Chiddush is, it's all for my good. It's all for my benefit. Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants me to emerge from this situation over here stronger and greater and bigger than I ever was before. And if a person shuns the nisayin, they shun the test, and they don't take it on and try to figure out how to overcome that nisayin, then we're missing out on an opportunity in life to grow, where HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us the chance. And then sadly it will come out that if we don't take this challenge, Hashem will send us another challenge somewhere else down the road. And if we still don't get the point, there'll be another challenge someplace else. Because until we will get the point that the challenges in life are to make us better people, Hashem will just have to keep sending them and sending them. That's why the whole idea of a Gilgal Neshama. The Neshama leaves this world, goes back up to Shemayim, and it's given a choice. Look, you blew it down there. So many opportunities you had to make yourself a better person. You didn't do it. So you have two choices. There's a place called Gehenna. You're going to suffer for a long time. Or I'll send you back down. Back down to that world again. All the ups and downs and the mishaps. Well, it's your choice. You want another chance? If you take another chance, maybe you'll learn from your previous mistakes. And when Hashem tests you, and Hashem afflicts you, and Hashem makes your life difficult, you'll rise to the challenge, and you'll overcome the difficulties, and you'll become the person that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants you to become. Yes?
Do we know at all how Dovid HaMelech developed these hashkafos? He had a Rabbi. I mean, he figured it out on his own.
I mean, he certainly had rebbeim in his life, but we don't speak so much about he had a Rebbe who taught him some stuff, Achitophel, but Dovid he outshined him. But Dovid HaMelech, he was kulo Torah. He was his whole essence, his whole mind, everything was Torah. This is what the Torah is teaching us. A person who has Torah in their life, you just read the Chumash. Just go through the Chumash. Just be as a simpleton. Read the Chumash, the beginning, all of Sefer Breishis and Shmos. Just read Breishis and Shmos. That's it. And if you go just no commentary, no art scroll explanation, no Rashi, nothing, just read the simple story. You will see the challenges that every single character and every personality in the Chumash has to go through. Every one. But it's those challenges which make them the great people that they were. And on the other hand, we find the people that did not rise to the challenges, they are the failures. Esav Harasha was endowed with a tremendous challenge in his life. He obviously had a lot of negativity inside of him. And yet his father Yitzchak loved Esav because he saw in his son Esav that Esav, if you're going to recognize that rising to the challenges that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has given you in your life is going to make you outshine even a Yaakov Avinu, so then you'll be the premier example of what a great person is, and we'll call you the tzaddik of the generation. But Esav failed. He succumbed to the pressures of his inertia. He succumbed to the desires that were within. He didn't want to hear about how much work he's going to have to do if he's a bechor, if he's a firstborn, and he's going to have to live a life of kedusha. He didn't want to hear about all these things. So he succumbed, and he failed the test. And as failing the test, he goes down in history as one of the most wicked people of all time. So the Torah itself is filled with this idea. If you rise to the challenge, Avraham Avinu was born in a world of avodah zarah, total idol worship. Everybody served idols. And yet Avraham Avinu spent his life day and night searching and seeking for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He found Hashem. He's thrown into the furnace. He comes out alive. Why? Because he trusted in the Rebbeinu Shalom. And he doesn't have a child, but he never stopped believing. And he went on and on, and Hashem gave him a child. He gave him a Yitzchak. And therefore, a person just reads the regular stories in the Chumash. And of course, if you have all of the commentary behind you, and you have all of the Chazal behind you, and you have all the deepest understandings behind you, you arrive at this picture that the purpose of all of the struggles that HaKadosh Baruch Hu puts us through in life is for one reason, and one reason only, that is to make us great. The Mishnah says at the very end of Pirkei Avos, fascinating thing. The Mishnah says over there, there's really 5 major chapters in the ethics of our fathers. The last one, the 6th one, is not really the same Mishnah of Pirkei Avos. It's all about Torah and the beauty of Torah, to be mechazik, to inspire us. But the main body of Pirkei Avos is the first 5. What's the last Mishnah? We just went through 5 chapters. It's all about making yourself a better person, instilling yourself with Yiras Shamayim, being humble, serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu with love, being nice and kind to other people, recognizing the grandeur of Torah, all these amazing things. The final words are written by a Tana, an author whose name was Ben Heihei. The Mefarshim tell us that Ben Heihei was a ger, he was a convert. He was a convert, and he says over the following words, last words of Pirkei Avos, Lafum Tzara Agra. According to the amount of tsar, according to the amount of effort that one has to expend in their lives to become a greater person, Agra, that is going to be the reward. Lafum Tzara, there is no other way. There is no other way to become great. There is no other way to reach a state of reward. There is no way to become an elevated person. Lafum tsar, the more tsar, the more pain, the more hardships, the more struggling, the more difficulties a person will go through, the more agra, the more reward it is that a person is going to receive for their actions. Who knows that better than a ger, than a convert who came to Yiddishkeit? And he's the final Tana, the final author of the Mishnah Pirkei Avos, because he knew what it took. Could you imagine what kind of a household he came from? Who his parents were, how he grew up, what he was doing with his life. Nothing to do with Torah, nothing to do with mitzvahs. He was out on Ventura Boulevard, and he was out in the clubs and the bars till 1, 3 o'clock in the morning. He watched every single movie on Netflix. I know there's this thing that happened during coronavirus called I binge on Netflix. That's what goes on in the world right now. They just became bingers so he was a binger. He Netflix binged for who knows his whole life. He was gaming all day long. And then he one day sees that there's a beauty in Yiddishkeit. Do you know how much he had to break himself to get to that point? How much he had to overcome what was inside of him to become a Kadosh V'Torah, that he's going to become a Tana of the Mishnah? And he says, Lafum Tsar Agra, I never would have got here if it wouldn't be for all the hard work that I put in. And that's what Dovid HaMelech is saying. That's what Torah is all about. Torah is all about a person recognizing that you don't have to look at yourself as being this atrocity who's being punished for all of your misdemeanors that you have done. It's true, there's consequences for when we misbehave. That is true. But you don't have to be so hard on yourself. Rather, look at the suffering that a person going through. Look at the tsar, look at the challenges as being the vehicle that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is sending to your life to make you into a greater person. And if you will indeed recognize that, and you will see that, then you'll sing a song also. You'll dance through the difficulties of life. You'll praise HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the most difficult of moments that a person could imagine, because you'll be able to see this is all Hashem's plan. And Hashem is doing this because He loves me, and He cares about me, and He wants me to become greater than I was yesterday. Says Rav Hirsch, but what's the benefit of this? If you remain such a person who is unequaled in their faith and their emunah, someone who stays close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu even in the difficult moments of his life, and you can be caught singing the song, so then everybody else that will see you, they will be elevated from your actions. They will be inspired by the way that you handle the situations in life. They will raise themselves up. It's because they'll say, look in the way in which this person is handling it. Look at the way that this person goes through the most difficult parts of their life. People know what's going on in people's personal lives very often, and they see you smiling, and they see you be'emunah, they see you with bitachon. It is a honor to you to be used as a vessel and a vehicle to inspire the rest of the people that will see you from doing such things. So this is, says Dovid HaMelech, this is what I took away from all the challenges. Not that I allowed myself to sink into my misery and wallow away in despair, but rather I utilized the moments, and I was mechadish, a new song. I came up with this idea, and that is, I'm going to go forward. I will accept, I will grow from all of the circumstances that I find myself in, and then other people, they will hear my song, and they will elevate themselves, and they will get the courage as well. They have, one of the greatest speakers on the circuits, not in the frum world, the greatest speakers in the world of, I don't know if it's self-help or it's inspiring, the life coaches and everything. You have people that went through tremendous adversity. Tremendous adversity. They lost limbs, they lost lives, they lost who knows all the different things, God forbid, that they went through. And there they are, they're standing up in a room of thousands of people, and they have no legs, or they have no arms, or they can't see anywhere, whatever it is. And they get up there and they begin telling over the story of their life, how they overcame the adversity of their lives, how they retrained themselves to live without a leg, how they went through this, and how this guy climbed Mount Everest, even though that he has no real legs left anymore. And everybody's sitting in there, they're inspired. What's the inspiration? Because you see a man who everybody would have said, if he would have decided to give up on life, nobody would have any complaints against him. He lost his legs, so fine, go ahead, do what you have to do. But he didn't do that. He took his deformity, or he took his handicap, and he used that for his advantage to become bigger, better, and stronger than he ever was before. And the man now is a shining example of, you could also overcome your adversity. And that's why when you see somebody who's gone through that, suddenly what do we have going on in our lives? I have legs, right? I have eyes. I have arms. I have my own hands. What am I complaining about? What in the world? Because this is a little bit more difficult than I would like it to be, because this is stressing me out right now. I'm getting very frustrated under the circumstances. But look what this person did over here. He climbed Mount Everest with prosthetics. He didn't give in to his suffering. He made his suffering work for him. So this is what Dovid HaMelech is saying. If I could go through what I go through, and nobody went through tsar like Dovid HaMelech, and I could sing a song and show people, life's not so bad. You'll use it to overcome and be stronger in your life. So then other people around me, they will learn how to trust in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So if a person goes through, Rahman Azan, they go through difficulties, they go through challenging situations in their life, use that to grow for yourself. Use it as well to be mechazik other people. Use it to strengthen other people. I had a friend who was dating, he was dating for a very, very long time before he got married. And he told me if it wouldn't be for the chayvus lavavos, duties of the heart, shar habitachon, the gateway of trust in Hashem, he never would have survived the whole ordeal. And because he needed to trust in Hashem so deeply with everything, and he became he was holding pretty good beforehand. but he became a massive Baal Bitachon, a person of belief and trust in Hashem as a result of that. Who benefits? Everybody else benefits. Because now he can go to the other guy who's dating for 6 years and still didn't get married, and he'll be machazik him, or somebody else will see him. You got married. After all these years, you got married, and you have a wife, and you have kids, you're living in Yerushalayim, you're a Kodesh, you're learning. How did you do that? Bitachon. I trusted in Hashem. I know HaKadosh Baruch Hu has the right one for me. I know He's going to bring this lady to me, and it works. So therefore, a person who struggles, know that your struggles are not for naught. They're for your benefit. They're helping you become stronger. And at the same time, you'll utilize what you have, and you'll help other people as well. Ashrei says the pasuk number 5. Ashrei hagever shesam Hashem miftachai. Along these lines, fortunate is the gever, is the man. Gever is the language of gibor. It takes strength to get to this point that he places his faith in Hashem. V'leifanel rahavim v'satei chazav, and he did not turn away to those people that are faithless and filled with deceit. Says Rav Hirsch over here, the one who sets God forever as the fount of his trust. HaKadosh Baruch Hu like a fount. He's like a well that's just gushing waters of trust and emunah. That regardless of the situation, this person never ceases to have faith in Hashem. If a man who's in the midst of stress and peril will look only to HaKadosh Baruch Hu for help, and he will not turn to these faithless people and these deceitful people and the like, that is the person who HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to set his path straight in this world. That means, says Rav Hirsch over here, that the foundation of our success, of our existence, of what is going to carry us through all the things, is that no matter what, you must have faith in Hashem. Why? We don't have a problem having faith in Hashem when things are going well. When it's a great day, the sky is clear and blue, and we have simchas going on in our families, everything is amazing. Sure, thank you Hashem for everything. Why is it in the dark days, in the hard times, that's when we have problems trusting in Hashem? Says Dovid HaMelech, if you'll be strong in those moments, and you'll trust in HaKadosh Baruch Hu even when all of that is happening, and you won't start pinning your faith on this one and that one and this person will help me, that person, it's not. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the one that is going to help you, and He's going to guide you in the pathways of righteousness and yashrus and straightness over here. And this is really what a person has to be working on, especially as we said in the beginning of this year, during these very difficult times that we find ourselves in. It's not a time for Klal Yisrael to despair. We don't have time. We don't have time to walk around in misery all day long. We don't have time to keep asking the questions, why, how, why, Lag Ba'omer, in Meiron, by the Kever of Yishim Bar Yochai. Nobody has the answers to that. And anybody that will say that they have the answers is not true. The only one that has the answers, now they have this thing, how did it happen? How did it happen? So now they're coming up with all the theories of, it was a tunnel, it was the stairs. How did it happen? HaKadosh Baruch Hu made it happen. That's how it happened. We're going to figure it out? We're not going to figure it out. In this world, we're not. Everybody knows the famous story of the Ramban. I probably told it over 100 times in these shiurim. The Ramban had a Talmud, a very close student who was on his deathbed. And the Ramban came to him shortly before he passed away, and he said to him, I'm makabel everything that HaKadosh Baruch Hu does in this world. I have 3 questions on Hashem. 3 things that are happening to Klal Yisrael, I cannot understand why HaKadosh Baruch Hu would do it. He said, my dear Talmud, you're going to go to the Olam HaEmes of the world of truth. I'm sending you with a letter. I want you to deliver this letter to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And then I want you to come back to me in a dream one night, and I want the answers to these 3 things. So sure enough, the Talmud died maybe the next day. The Ramban buried him with the letter in his cave, in his grave. And a few nights later, the student came to the Ramban in a dream. And he was shining and he was glowing. And the Ramban said, "Nu, tell me, what's the answer?" He says, "Rabbi, I'm not privy to tell you the answer. The answers to your questions belong to those that are in the Olam HaEmes, in the world of truth. But trust me, When you see the reason, you'll have no questions anymore. That's all. We live in this world. We're one-dimensional. We can't see past our nose at all. So therefore we have to say to ourselves, trust me, says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, there's a reason, there's a rhyme, there's a purpose. Think to yourself, 45 people died. There were 100,000 people there. 45. How did HaKadosh Baruch Hu know how to pluck those 45 neshamas out of this world? What about the other? Why only those 45? Why not a different 45? Why did the Father live and the Son? Why? We can't ask, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu has a plan for every neshama. HaKadosh Baruch Hu has a plan for Mashiach to come. HaKadosh Baruch Hu has a plan for everything. Our job in this world is not to figure out why all the suffering is happening. Our job is to raise ourselves up in Emunah and Bitachon and see how could we become stronger and greater as a result of that. And if a person will just watch this one father, how he's speaking all about Achdus and Emunah and Bitachon as he's bearing his 13-year-old son who has his whole life in front of him to the grave. So then you'll understand how a person rises up under those. I remember when there was the tragic fire of the Sasson family that broke out in New York so many years ago already. I don't know how many years, 6, 7 years ago. And 7 of his children, they were burned in the fire, and he was not home for Shabbos, and he came back and he sees what's going on. And his Emunah, his bitachon, he got up when he spoke by the Levaya, the way that he spoke about Hashem, the way that there was no anger, there was no pain, there was no disgust with Hashem's the plans. He did everything be'emunah and bitachon, and he went around the world that year speaking about believing in Hashem. That's the response. That's the level that a person will raise themselves up to. We shouldn't need such tragedies to help us sing the Shir Chadash, the new song that we have to sing about this. All the neshamas, they should have a tremendous aliyah. They left this world in such a holy place. They left this world at such a holy time. They left this world in such a state. I would imagine all of them besimcha rabba, such happiness over the mitzvahs that they were doing while they were there, and the celebration of Torah and the celebration of Kedusha that they all felt. That's how they left this world. Their neshamas are up there. They're up in the highest of places. Those of us that are down here, still left in this world, we have to utilize what we have inside and pull out the koiches in our neshama, and that's chus be'ez Hashem. Hashem will bring a nechama to all the families, an elevation to all the neshamas, a refuah to all those that still need it in the hospital, and He'll bring the ultimate redemption, the geula, not just the geula for ourselves, but the geula for Klal Yisrael. B'mheira v'yameinu.
Thank you, Rabbi.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you, Rabbi.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Have a good week, everyone. The ladies are starting to come back, so there's still some seats available for anyone else that would like to join us.
Okay. בעזרת השם בשבוע הבא.
Amen. Bezrat Hashem.